Hello everyone to the webinar about winning projects, bidding and delivering in the digital age. My name is Johannes Linder. I'm Docs42 Technical Evangelist. So I'm always in projects and trying to find ways how people can optimize the processes. And one very, very crucial part that we've seen is what we will show you today. And yeah, I'm gladly to be joined by Jacob Wardrop from 28 Hands.
Hello, everyone.
All right. I've just got noticed that we're stuck on the first slide. Now you see the slide that we had. Good. Thank you, Jacob. What we will talk about today is obviously RFPs and quote automation. So we get a little insight on this from Jacob. There will be also some questions that we will ask you throughout these RFPs. And the slides. Then the biggest part of today's webinar will be the automation lifetime. So we will show you a live hands-on scenario where you get to see how you can automatically generate quotes, where you can review and send them, adapt to changes. And when there is any project member or anybody who joins a project and they want to get to know what has happened, we have full traceability. That's something Jacob will show you later on. We will do something more about the product background, just from a theoretical point of view. And the last part that we will do is a question and answer session. And yeah, before we actually start with telling you something, we ask you something. So we do have our first question today. And yeah, that's the perfect point, Jacob, where I can hand you the word.
Thank you, Johannes. So, yeah, just before we set the scene about how we see companies who we talk to trying to win and deliver project work to their businesses, we wanted to start off with a poll, which if you can answer just through the polling option in GoToWebinar. We wanted to ask you how many days during the week do you spend on RFP related work, and there's a number of different options there, whether it's half a day, less than half a day, or more than this. So if you can answer this, we'll obviously be able to see the responses as they come in. So you should be able to see it just below the attendees section now. I can see we've already had some responses. Okay. Good. So if I just go on to the next slide.
All right. Interesting results.
Okay. So if I just go on to the next slide, that'll be fine.
Great. So we're still collecting responses, so if anybody wants to join the poll still, feel free to go, because we will eventually close it and then show you the results. All right, then let's share the results. Very interesting. We have 50% half a day, 50% 1 to 4 hours. So I think we're quite in the average, what we also expected from everybody who was joining the webinar. Yeah, Jacob.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Janice, and yeah, thank you to everyone who's voted on that. Hopefully, you'll see some technology today which can help reduce the amount of administrative time you spend trying to win projects. So what we're doing here is just setting the scene of how we see the work-winning processes within professional services businesses. So we've picked an example of responding to a request for a proposal, because lots of our clients come across this every day, and they're finding they have more and more of these coming in, and they have to sift through more information than they have had to in the past. What we're talking about today doesn't just apply to responding to requests for proposals. Lots of our clients are responding to pre-qualification questionnaires if they work in the public sector, tenders, bid submissions. Effectively, this webinar is relevant for anyone who's trying to win project work and has to present information in a certain way to a client. So the example which we're using is responding to a request for a proposal. So if I just go on to the next slide, that will move this on nicely. The companies who we speak to have to present information to support a bid, which tends to be locked in lots of different systems, whether it's financial data, certificates, qualifications of staff, CVs, a track record in a certain sector, information from past projects, and broadly speaking, we see there's kind of two types of work associated with winning projects. One being admin work, and one being actual client-facing activities. So what we're talking about today is trying to reduce the amount of administrative time associated with responding to bids. And that's mainly because the companies who we speak to work in an age where they tend to obviously want to win more projects than ever, but they're responding to more than they have in the past, but they're also having to submit a lot more information. So lots of businesses employ bid coordinators now because of the level of administration associated with bids. And lots of clients we speak to see this as an administrative burden rather than rather than a positive thing, which obviously winning projects is. So yeah, lots of our clients feel that this is winning projects represents or the administration associated with winning projects represents an administrative burden, which is what we're going to talk about now. So if I just move on to the next slide. Typically, the information which I mentioned, such as financial data, qualifications of staff, etc., this is spread around a business rather than in one central place. So when responding to a bid, there's lots of different coordinators and contributors required, because the information could be with a finance team. So whoever's responding to the bid tends to have to speak to project staff, sometimes senior management, the finance team, as well as business support functions if you have to evidence your quality management procedures. So typically you could be going to 5 or 6 different people in a company to put together a winning response for a bid. Lots of this is very manual. It's obviously open to error, and involves the time and resource of your colleagues, rather than you just having all of your data and documents in one place and being able to use that in a more automated way. So our view is, rather than going to a finance team and asking for your most recent results, and rather than going to a senior partner in charge of a sector to understand your track record there, that this information should be readily available. The main thing is that lots of the information you're asked to submit in proposals is quite repetitive and is the same a lot. So you need tools which allow you to reuse this information, particularly if you're trying to reuse information which the company's produced, but perhaps you haven't produced yourself, so you may not know where it is. So the idea of having one central hub of all of your previous bids and submissions, organised by sector or by client, can be very powerful. But the main thing is that lots of businesses, particularly in the professional services world, just feel that submitting bids has become an administrative burden. So if I just move on to the next slide. So just here we've got another poll which basically says, when preparing an RFP response, what do you feel is the most challenging thing for you? Whether it's keeping track of changes, coordinating responses among team members, managing version control, or organising manual changes as per a client's request. We'll just wait for the responses to come in.
More people voting. So we'll do it the same way as we did last time, just a little longer for everybody to join the poll. All right, we have a lot of people voting. Some still missing, so in case you want to still join, 5 more seconds for the poll to join. All right, then let's close it and share the results. Seems like they are it's quite the balance between the chores that they have about RFPs. Interesting.
Good. Thank you, everyone. So if we just go on to the next slide. So there is an alternative way of working. Typically, as I mentioned, in the old way, we see lots of businesses having departmental systems, which isn't ideal if you're responding to a bid which tends to need input from all of those departments or systems. So if I just move on to the next slide, we've got a visual representation of what the new world should look like, because rather than having each department in the business or each office in the business working in their own silo, there are systems available which basically help you centralize your data and documents to ensure you're only a couple of clicks away from this information. So rather than going to your finance team and asking for your latest figures, or rather than going to perhaps your marketing team and asking for your track record in a certain sector, this should all be readily available. So if you've got all of your data in one place through one system, that means you've got a really good starting point to report from. If you can then auto-generate documents from these types of tools, it means that the repetitive activities which you do when trying to win projects, such as generating CVs, generating standard documents, you can do that in a much more automated way, which means that you've got more time to think about how do we present this information to a client, what are we going to say to the client, rather than actually doing the kind of administration work associated with winning the bid. So that's data. Having all of your data in one place means you can report, and means you can generate documents in a much quicker way. But also, as the responses of the poll show, there's lots of information which comes in on bids. So there's a real need to centralise this in one place. So whether it's all of the documents and emails relating to a bid, it's really important to be able to find them quickly, particularly if you've got more than one person working on that. But probably more importantly is that there are tools available which allow you to, such as Mail Manager, which allow you to recycle information from previous bids in a much more efficient way. So rather than trying to think, oh, I know someone's done some work in the education sector before, I'll go and talk to him to see if he's got any information on this topic. You should just use a system which allows you to find this information quickly, rather than thinking about who do I need to speak to, who's got some knowledge about that. Then knowledge shouldn't leave with the employee; it should be in one system. So that's what we're going to talk about next.
All right. Thank you very much for the insights so far, Jacob. I have the great job to do to prove what you've just said, that there is a new way to do this. And before this, I want to introduce you to two people. So on the left side we have Michaela, on the right side we have Bernard. I have the great job to be Bernard today. Michaela will be my customer, and I will be the one who's actually talking to her about the bid. And before I start with the new word, how would I do this if I would still do with the standard way? So usually what I would do is I'd manually write a quote based on SharePoint information, Excel, PowerPoint. So I've mentioned SharePoint the first time today. So what we're going to do today as a scenario is we use SharePoint and Dynamics CRM technology-wise, but this is just one way of actually having the project. Basically, the technology in this part doesn't really matter. It could be coming from everywhere. Now, usually when I put together all my information from the different systems to one place, mainly copy-paste, I save it as a PDF, attach it to email, and send it. Cost me probably around 1 hour so far. Now, there's the upload to SharePoint, so everything is kept in an archive. I will put in, if I get the response from Michaela, I will put in some change requests from Michaela, which means I basically have to repeat steps 1, 2, 3 once again. Takes me another hour. And then I have to remember everything that I might have done wrong in another copy-paste version. And for example, if another colleague joins the project, it's quite hard for him to trace because he doesn't really see my inbox. And that's not something he can browse through. And that's something that we want, because it just makes it so much easier. Instead of like having to ask everybody, we want to keep it traceable. Now, yeah, let's start with the new way. And that will be the first part of the live demo. So what I want to show you first is all the information that we need to get together for the bid in this case to be complete. So as you can see in here, that's Dynamics 365, a CRM system, which could of course be any CRM system that you want to use. And we do have the solar panel offer. We do have a lot of product information here. We have the sum. But usually when it comes to having a bid or having a quote that we want to generate, that's not the only information that we include into such a quote. And the rest of the information that we have is stored within SharePoint. So there's a SharePoint Online site with different quote modules. So very, very standard principle. For example, I was on site with the customer. I had a presentation, which is going to be our solar presentation, standard PowerPoint file. Then there are a couple of Word documents I want to include into this quote. So for example, there is the project description. You see there are also some charts included, some images. Rather something that's usually copy-paste or a lot of work to put together and to merge it into one document. And we also have an advertisement, same principle, that's a Word document. Let me just show that to you. So everybody joining or everybody receiving a quote can participate in the contest. That's what we will insert in here for our commercial reasons. And then eventually we have discussed some figures with the customer. And those figures we've put together and summed them up in an Excel sheet. That's right here. So I could also change this right here in SharePoint Online with everything done. Now the good part, instead of actually needing to create one template in Word and do all the manual steps that I already had, I have the option here. That's syntax 42 functionality to preview a document, to create a draft email with that and save it to SharePoint. I could email it right away or save it to SharePoint. Now the easiest option, and the option that I would go for also in terms of the process first, is I want to generate the document based on all the information that we have just seen. So I can have one glimpse at everything that's there together before the customer actually receives that offer, that quote, which means currently the system is connecting to SharePoint Online, having Excel data integrated, having Word data integrated, having PowerPoint data integrated, and also all this information that I have within CRM that's also put into the document. And also the document has some logic. So that's something I can define in a template. I hope the webinar is not taking too much of my resources currently, but that shouldn't be a problem with this. And I will get the quote eventually. All right, there it is. So I can open the document. And you'll see that's a good looking document in this case with, remember this was our project description. Here we have the products that are stored within Dynamics CRM. Automate a table, so let's say I add a quote, or for example I add a discount, that will be shown here. I do have the service installations, which was our Excel sheet within SharePoint Online, and on the last page there's also the technical presentation, PowerPoint, and another offer, that was the Word document. So with one click I was able to have everything included within this document, and I don't need to do all the copy pasting. For me, the next step to make it also traceable, but at the same time create an email, would be to create a draft email. So in this case, we not only get the attachment that we've just seen as a PDF, but we also get a mail. So the output will be an entire mail that I can open within Outlook and just change right away if I want to change anything, or if I just want to send it. It has also the mail body automatically created. And yeah, I can send it right away from my Outlook, and I don't need to do all the manual work. This, as you've seen, also does a redirect to my SharePoint list. So this is stored within SharePoint now, or if alternatively, if I don't want to see this and just have it opened right away, that would also be possible. We see there is the order mail a few seconds ago. The order mail also has the quote number included, so it's very easy to trace everything. I can open this. So it is opened within my Outlook. Great. If I want to do any other formatting like rich text, HTML, that's no problem. If I want to add anything to my email, that's also, so I can say, looking forward to your answer, for example. And then before I send this, I just need to make my Outlook work online again. Let's hope this doesn't get too much emails in here. All right, stay connected, perfect. And now we are able to send this. As I said today, representing Bernard, but I'm still sending this to Michaela. Michaela's inbox is synchronized to my site, to my Outlook as well. As you've seen, Michaela Mitarbeiter, that's also here the information. We have the quote information also within the email, all of this with one click. Okay, so let's send this. And as you see, when I send this, I'm not only able to send it, but to also upload it to SharePoint. So that's Mail Manager functionality, and that's very important for the traceability. And you will see later on, see when Jacob joins the live demo, that you can also have a social map where you will see that, for example, if I'm the one sending a lot of emails around this, people will know that I'm kind of responsible for the project, or at least I'm the person knowing the most about the project. So send and file this. Looks good. Now I should have received an email from Michaela within a second. Send receive starting. Took a little time to go all through Europe, but eventually will be here. Oh, I was in the wrong outbox, of course. Now this is the inbox of Michaela, so she has obviously already received the email. And you see in here the complete email with everything that we've changed, standard email, also the attachment, just like the one that we've just created within Dynamics CRM with all the information included. But I realized as Michaela that there is a discount that we agreed on. Somebody forgot the discount. Now that's also something that happens very often when it comes to bids. There's negotiations about any terms that need to be changed. So let's say Michaela answers to Johannes, or Bernard in our case. Hello Johannes, please change the discount to 5%. She will send that to me. Could again send it in her inbox. I'm just going to do the send only in this case. And then switch back to my inbox where I get the please change the discount to 5%. I realized I've forgotten that, but instead of having to change everything, the manual document, everything that's uploaded to SharePoint, I could just go back to my Dynamics CRM, change the discount in here, or any other CRM that you might use, and this way we would again trigger the same process, having the draft email again created, but this case with a different mail body, since it's been changed. But instead of going through the process again, what I want to show you now is the template for the email and for our quote. So I have already opened this, but before I'm going to show you the Word documents, let me just show you the draft. So this is the draft folder. You see there's standard Word documents that are quite easy to change because you probably are familiar with Word. And the first thing I will show you is the mail body, and later on, a little more complex, the sales quote that we've generated. Now let's see the mail body. That's the Docs42 add-in. You see there is some different data sources, and there's, for example, the quote number that we had included in the email. Remember, in this email, so that's what was created. And if I want to change anything here, let's say I want to add the quote number again, or let's make it effective from, I can insert this very easy with this being a date time or anything else. Let's also define the culture, it will be English. Okay. Generate this as a trial to just see if it works. I can also decide on which code I want this. And you see, that's our email, live generate in this case in Word. And the second scenario that we had within Word was our sales quote, also a Word document that is included. If I want to change anything on this, you can see that there's again the docs with 2 data fields. Insert data fields, drag and drop in them into a document, check where they're coming from. And before I go into too much detail here, I will again generate the document. In this case, again, with all the information that we had. What changed to the initial generation of the document is that we should have included the 5% discount in our now scenario. But everything, also the calculations within the document, they are based on that 5%. So you do not need to check anything for errors or for new calculations. All of this is obviously done automatically. Now I get to see this within Word. Okay, let's just put those documents side to side so you actually can see the mail. Now with document 3, that's the one we want. Let's zoom out a little. So you can see all the address information, the validation. You can also see that there is our document included. There is the automated table of the products. Also our Excel sheet from SharePoint, and on the last page it's the technical presentation with the advertisement included. I will not go into too much detail about this in this webinar. If you want to get to know how this technically works, we will say this in the end, but we can do follow-ups. So please don't hesitate to ask us to see how this actually works. All right, I promised that there will also be some cool integrations with the social map of Mail Manager, which I cannot show. So Jacob, would you help me?
Yeah, certainly, if you just make me the presenter.
Sure, just a second. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Jen. It's a really useful insight into the power of having all of your data in one place, and some of the operational benefits you can drive from that in terms of being able to generate documents quickly. One of the things which I'm going to show is the search within Mail Manager, as well as the social mapping tools. So the example which Johannes used is Mail Manager, which is working inside Outlook. Just here, and if I click on search, I'm able to search for emails across the business now. I've got this number of emails down here, so currently there's 97,000 emails across the system. And what I'm going to do in the scenario of supporting a bid, perhaps there's a bid in the retail sector, and you know that in the past you've worked in that sector before, but you're not sure exactly who to speak to. Currently, lots of emails go around saying who's worked with this person or who's worked on these types of projects before. But this tool allows you to see that information firsthand. So I'm looking at this particular project, which we've worked on in the past, and if I click on the social map here, it will show me who the loudest voices were on this project and who the most prolific senders of emails were. So very quickly, it's brought up, obviously there's lots of conversations which are going on this particular one, but I can see here that Reese Lewis has been the key point of contact along with Stephanie Morn. So very quickly, there's 100 people on that project, but I can just quickly see that Reese is the person I should go and speak to about this, which is really useful if you're looking back at old projects to see who the best person to speak to is. There's also, just by having your information in one place, there's also lots of other ways in which this can be beneficial to support both the winning of work and just generally resolving queries. Just if I wanted to search for, I don't know, a client had asked you a question about a message on your environmental plan, I could just type in some keywords and I could see how we've responded to that in the past. So sticking with that example, I can just type in some of those phrases here, and very quickly it's gone from 97,000 emails to 16. If I said, well, actually, I know we've probably been asked this in the last 6 months, say, or 3 months, then very quickly I've been able to drill down from 97,000 emails to 1 in a matter of seconds. I can see what our response was in the past, copy and paste this into, or just obviously look at it, and this can inform our response in the future. Equally, when you're working on a bid and there's more than one person on a bid or on a project, it's really useful to be able to see all of the correspondence in one place. So within Mail Manager, I can just very quickly type in, we'll stick with the same example we had earlier of ACOM, and it'll just, from 97,000 emails, it's just showing us the emails on this particular opportunity we're working on, which are coming directly from Outlook. So as Johannes showed, when you're sending and receiving emails, you're prompted to file them, and Mail Manager suggests where they should go to based on the content and the people involved in the email. But importantly, especially in the sort of age we live in terms of people having to deal with a much higher volume of correspondence than they have in the past, this is a highly effective tool which allows you to drill in, find either previous information, manage incoming information which is coming in a very light touch way. You're using Outlook, so it requires virtually no training. Yeah, that's that really. Over to you, Johannes.
Thank you very much. This is so useful when it comes to meetings, just like 10 minutes before and you want to get an update. This is something that really could save lives. All right, then I'm going to show my screen again. Please let me know if you see it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, perfect. All right, then. So we've been through the automation. As we said in the agenda, we also want to give you a little product background. Usually we would do this the other way around. This time we tried to make it the other way, so we have the scenario first, but still we will get the background on the products. Now, I'm going to start with the options that you have with Docs42 and Mail Manager we will see in a second. So for Docs42, it's mainly about generating documents. We've seen the quote today. You can also do contracts, presentations. You can do this within SharePoint, Dynamics, all the new models, SAP, SQL databases. So we're quite flexible on the scenario. And if you have a look on our customers, they are basically not within one fixed industry. So just documents are created within every process almost. Mostly still manual or with either like HTML outputs, but this is something you can automate. You can help your people and employee to do in an automatic way, and instead of doing this, you could then do other work. Like in our quote, or like we do it, for example, we obviously do also our quotes with Docs42. We just have so much time to communicate and get to know what's really important about a project rather than spending like hours in the night to actually create the quote. From a technical point of view, this works as you've seen with the Docs42 Word add-in, Excel add-in, or PowerPoint add-in, which you see as an example Word on the left side with the sales report. And there's the server integration where you can do all the stuff that I've done within SharePoint or within Dynamics CRM. The data integration that we offer is obviously SharePoint and Dynamics CRM, but you can also include other options. That's something you can connect with in the so-called Docs42 data map. and you can also interconnect them. So let's say I want to have something from a SQL database, from SharePoint, and from Dynamics CRM. That's no problem as long as there's a primary key where you can connect the different data. The way you integrate the data into the document, as I said, would be within the Docs42 data map, which you can open in the Docs42 add-ins. So for example, you see here, that's a database data source. It's the employee data. And this employee data, again, is shown here on the right side on the task pane that I've also shown in the live demo. You can drag and drop them into the document. And it's obviously going to take the formatting of the position it is used in Word. So you don't need to think about bold, italic, or anything about this. This is just standard Word functionality, same as for table of contents, etc., etc. Okay, Jacob.
Thank you, Johannes. So yes, just to provide some background to the product which I've been talking about today, which is Mail Manager. It has been developed over the past 11 years by RFP, who are a global leader in engineering, who effectively develops a product to help companies deal with email overload. And the type of businesses who need and really benefit from Mail Manager are those who are working across multiple projects. The finding that they struggle to deal with the volume of incoming emails, so people as a result are spending too much time in their inbox and not enough time on fee earning work. There tends to be quite a lot of ill discipline around email management, so there isn't one joined up approach to filing email which presents its own risks in terms of being able to reproduce everything against the project, you know, at the click of a button. And equally, lots and lots of more and more workers are working remotely, and the idea that, you know, if you're out and about you can't file and you can't search for correspondence becomes quite limiting, and it's kind of brought around this whole idea of everyone forwarding emails around to each other. So Mail Manager has really been developed to help employees save time managing, filing and searching for email, help mitigate risk associated with losing and not being able to retrieve correspondence, as well as being able to collaborate better internally. So using the example of resolving a query on a request for a proposal, being able to search and actually make use of your previous information rather than it just being locked or filed under a project, which realistically you're probably not going to search for unless you've sort of had some hands-on experience with it in the past. The next slide just provides a bit of insight into the unique points of Mail Manager, are that it's very quick. So the example earlier of drilling down from 100,000 emails to 2 in just a matter of seconds, it's incredibly easy to deploy. So other products available tend to involve sort of 6 to 12 month implementation and a big change management exercise to actually get staff using it. But because Mail Manager integrates with Outlook, it can be rolled out virtually in a week. It can index your previous information, and you use the product sometimes without really realizing that you're using it, which is a massive benefit. It's also entirely flexible and secure in terms of integrating with your other key business applications. So it's something which is fast, easy to use, and very, very flexible. Thank you. And then if you've obviously have any more questions, you can ask questions actually through the GoToWebinar type box. So there's a questions section which we'll review at the end. But if you'd like more information on Mail Manager specifically, then there's videos, case studies, demonstrations available. You just have to visit the website or use the contact details given at the end of this webinar.
All right. I can ask the last final question. Now, why change? It's always, I know we all know the struggle, we're all within daily projects, and sometimes the way we do it works, but still we try to sum up what you've seen today and what's the option to show. Now, just a little summary on our scenario. So usually you start with the customer requesting a quote or requesting a bid. you can very easily now create an offer within CRM, automatically generated, including the email, including the PDF, and send that to your customer. By filing them, another employee, for example, would also be able to see everything that's within that. And like Jacob said, the performance, I don't know if you've ever tried to browse through 100,000 documents within Outlook. Yeah, that's quite impressive on the mail manager side. Now, after the feedback and the negotiated terms are again put into the CRM or again put into the SharePoint, you can again send code and file this, so everything keeps being traceable. And for both of them, there are some benefits of this, which mainly I'd say is the speed. So you can reduce very costs, time costing actions can be done automatically, and instead you can do stuff that you want to do more effectively. So for example, you have either other opportunities that you can focus on more, or you have the option to actually talk to your customer and really give quality feedback and quality bids. From a technical point of view, the summary, also for those that maybe are not able to join this webinar, this will also be, well, we send the recording as well as the PowerPoint slides out to all the customers and those that haven't been able to attend the webinar. Just as a quick summary, so as I said, it's mainly speed, it's efficiency, it's more being able to do stuff that you really want to do or you need to do, for example, to adapt to market trends and chances very quickly. So for example, we had one customer where they were able to adapt based on, for example, the data just being in Excel instead of like having a complicated application. And this way they were able to gain 100 customers, I think, per day in a very easy way. And yeah, our favorite quote is, "I love doing my work this way again." That's a real life quote we got from a common project. As the next steps, if you want to try this yourself, or maybe if you also want to get to know the product in an individual webinar, we're both to help you both. Just contact us. There is going to be a contact slide as the very last slide. And before we get to this, we invite you to ask any questions, or maybe there are already some questions asked during the webinar. I'll just check now. I'm going to look. Okay, so the first question: how long does it take to install Mail Manager?
So it really varies based on your business, but it can be up and running in a day, really. It's a light touch installation. We obviously provide some training, but yeah, it can be up and running by tomorrow. That's the beauty of the product, really.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. In case for those that were wondering about the installation of Docs42, pretty much the same. Within a day, you should be up and running. Also training, let's say about a day. That should be it. If your question wasn't answered well enough, just put more information into the question panel, and we can answer that in more detail. Good. So, second question: how do you license the product? I'm not quite sure which product, but I will probably just go for both answering. Okay.
So the Mail Manager product is priced per user, and it can either be priced perpetually, which is a one-off cost with a small amount due per year for maintenance, and then there's also a subscription option, which can be anywhere between £4 and £8 a user, based on the size of company. £4 and £8 a user per month.
All right. For us, it's pretty much the same principle. So we price this per user. On the client side, like you've seen the add-in, and the integration into, for example, SharePoint is priced with the document server, Docs42 server, which is available for PowerPoint, Word, and Excel, either all together as the enterprise module or separate as Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. If you want to get to know detailed prices about this, also please contact us so we can discuss this in the webinar. As I said, the server per instance, the add-ins either per client or per user. Good. So we're still waiting, let's say 1 or 2 minutes for more questions to come up. So don't hesitate to ask if there's something that you still need to know. All right then. I think we might have answered all questions. In case we don't, here are our contact details. So either Jacob or me, we're both happy to answer your questions. And yeah, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your questions. I hope that the input was interesting for you. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you also, Jacob, for your time. Very interesting insights.
Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us, and look forward to speaking to you all soon.
All right then. Bye.
Thanks a lot.